What is going on, everyone? We have Philly 500 in the building today to talk some Eagles football, and there is a lot to talk about. Now, it's weird because Thursday night football happened. We didn't have football on Sunday. The Jets game still seems a little bit far away. So what are we going to discuss? Well, the cornerbacks. The cornerbacks, that's a problem right now. The run game. I thought Duce said something pretty interesting over the last couple days here. And on top of that, let's talk about the Cowboys loss, because I know Philly 500 has a lot to say about that now. Before we dive into this, I just want to say, if you are listening to this on the podcast app, please leave a review and a 5-star rating. That will be lovely. So I open the door up to you and open the floor up to you, Philly 500. What's going on?
Yo, everybody doing? Bros, what is up, man? Thanks for having me on. I appreciate. Thank you so much for being here. Hey, man, like you said, there's a lot going on. The game against the Jets is far away, and frankly, as far as I'm concerned, as long as the Eagles show up, we're going to win this game. But we got a lot going on in this secondary. A lot of things to worry about, a lot of things to possibly get excited about, and I'm ready, man. I'm ready.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start off with the cornerback issues, because once again, it seems like the same exact thing that happened last year. Here we are depleted. There's no one left. The only guy hanging around right now is Rasul Douglas, and I mentioned this before. To me, he's the cornerback that is the chick that seems hotter because she's hanging around with uglier friends. You know, it's Rasul Douglas can hang. Well, yeah, that's because we're stuck with Sidney Jones, who can hang, and Ronald Darby, who has been getting torched. So right now, what do we do? Do we have to rely on Craig James in this New York Jets game?
It seems that way. I mean, we got no Darby, no Jones, right? No Vontae Maddox. Rasul Douglas, look, I think he's a pretty good player. I still think he would be an all-pro safety. He's going to struggle against speed wide receivers. He's going to play well against guys that are physical. But, I mean, as much as our secondary was bad last year, I think we're worse. Because we're talking about guys who are injured who were stinking it up anyways. I mean, Sidney Jones stinks. Ronald Darby stunk. And Vontae Maddox definitely looked like he was regressing from last year. So they weren't even playing that good when they were healthy.
It's unbelievable to think about where we are right now. And I heard this get thrown out there, and I'm just curious on your thoughts. Would you move... Now, I don't know. I don't think I would do this, but would you move Malcolm Jenkins to cornerback? And now you're not about that. I see your facial expression here.
I don't think he would like outside corner. I don't think so. I think he can play slot at times, come in, but I don't think he can play outside corner.
Well, this is the proposal. So, say you put Malcolm Jenkins on the outside, then you have Ronnie McLeod and Sendejo in the safety position. Would you rather have Rasul Douglas and Malcolm Jenkins on your outsides, or would you rather have Malcolm Jenkins playing safety with Ronnie McLeod, and then you have Rasul Douglas and have to rely on someone like Craig James?
I think I would rely on somebody like Craig James. I just afraid with Sendejo scares the crap out of me in the passing game. First off. Secondly, it just seems like moving Malcolm is, you at least your safeties with McLeod and Malcolm, you have those guys solidified. Rasul Douglas on the outside. It just seems like we're creating more confusion, in my opinion, by doing that. That's why I would probably leave him.
I don't disagree with you at all. I just heard that get thrown out there because, listen, at this point, you're that desperate. Like, that's how desperate we are. So, over the last few hours, you see the report, and I saw this on Bleeding Green Nation, that it looks like Howie Roseman offered a first and a second round pick for Jalen Ramsey. I'm at the point now where I do believe Howie Roseman is invested on getting something done, but don't you think at this point the games would be stopped being played and it's either Howie's going to make it happen or not? Like, how much longer can this really be dragged out for?
I really thought that between Monday and Wednesday, something was going to drop. And then we had that trade with the linebacker, which really made no sense why you're trading a defensive back when you're already so thin. So I'm thinking, okay, something must be up. but nothing has come down yet. And I don't know. And I heard the first and the second too, but then other people come at me and it's like, well, the Eagles give up 2 firsts, they give up 3 firsts. I don't know what we're giving up. I don't know what the hell's going on. I just think that Jacksonville could hold out, but at the end of the day, I think they're going to have to move this guy. He does not want to play there. He does not. And I really think beating Baltimore hurt us, because if they go down 1-3 and they got Carolina, New Orleans in following weeks, they might have been like, the hell with this, season's over. Now they think that they have a chance, which they don't. But we got to do something.
I know.
Bro, we got to do something. We have to make a trade. And I want Jalen Ramsey so friggin' bad. I swear. My wife's like, hey, why don't you talk to me, Jalen Ramsey? Why don't you do it? Jalen Ramsey. Like, all I talk about is Jalen Ramsey all day. I want Jalen Ramsey now. And people are talking about Chris Harris, and I know you might get it. And look, he's a good corner. He's a Pro Bowl corner. Yes, he would help. But I don't want any 30-year-old players. We have enough 30-year-old players. We're going to give mid-round picks away for some more 30-year-olds. We need to get younger. And I think Ramsey has to be the target.
You did read my mind, because I was going to mention, should we go with someone like Chris Harris, who is a 30-year-old, who doesn't have any time left on his contract after this year, but that's fine. We just need something that is doable and serviceable right now based off of where we are at. But you are right. Getting someone like Jalen Ramsey will change this team in the future, because we will have an actual shutdown guy. And listen, I've been on Jim Schwartz forever, and you even know that because I rip him apart in our group chat all the time. But I look at Jim Schwartz, and I'm almost shocked with what he was able to do so far this season with what we have in that
right.
secondary.
Right. Yeah. Well, look, he, for whatever reason, his defenses play great goal line defense. I mean, they're good in the red zone. Part of it is because the field shrinks in half. So those guys can only get burned so bad. You know what I mean? Like, that's part of it. But, see, the thing with Schwartz, a lot of people say is, well, if you get Ramsey, he's not going to change the scheme to fit Ramsey. I disagree. I think Ramsey may be the only guy that makes him have to do it because of how good he is. Like, would he do that if Harris Jr. came, or Xavier Howard? Would he change things? But with Ramsey is a top 2 corner. He would do it with him. He would have no choice. And I think Ramsey's the key. I just do.
I do agree that Jim Schwartz he'll have to have Jalen Ramsey go up against their best wide receiver man-to-man, and then that shrinks the field for everyone else. So it's going to work if we get him. It just comes down to getting him. But one person I want to mention here that everyone keeps talking about, and it's funny to me, is Jalen Mills. And, I can't wait for Jalen Mills to get back. Right. Am I crazy to think that Jalen Mills is going to come back and is going to be just as bad as Ronald Darby and the other guys? Because, listen, yes, he got torched on the double moves and all that, and that was 2 years ago. Like, this kid hasn't been really able to perform or do anything for so long. How can you expect him to just come in and be a savior? It won't happen. He was never even a savior when we had him to begin with.
No, he's not going to come in and be a savior. He's a good red zone corner. But people think he's going to come in, get 20, 30 plays, or he's not. It's going to take him a while just to get his feet under him. And when he's at his best, we saw how bad he gets burnt. But that's just tells you how bad the secondary has been, that we're wanting Jalen Mills back. You know what I mean? The fact that we even want him back, it tells you how bad everybody else has been.
Definitely, and even people calling for Cravon LeBlanc. Like, listen, this guy was picked up off the street, and yeah, he had a decent little showing last year, but that's who we're really sitting here begging to get back? That's a problem. So I heard Sal Paolantonio today talking about the Eagles' corners, and he is anti-Jalen Ramsey if it's going to take up 2 first-round picks, because, that those are very valuable. But then you look at those 2 first-round picks, and I do agree, they are more valuable than what people are saying. He is that type of player, though, that can change your team tremendously, so I would definitely think about it. But then I think about Howie Roseman, and I look at Sidney Jones, and you know me, I am so anti-Sidney Jones. What makes me think that Howie Roseman is going to be able to nail these first-round picks? Now, normally, he's good with first-round picks. It's more the other ones that get a little iffy.
Right.
But what makes me think that Howie Roseman is going to be able to knock down these picks? Because, that Sidney Jones one was so bad. Like, he is... Let's take away the fact that he's a bad cornerback. Like, he's just bad. It's that obvious to me. Every time something goes wrong or every game, he's leaving with a hamstring. Now, is that because of the Achilles? Is there a correlation between the Achilles and the hamstring always getting popped or whatever? But take away the talent, he can't even stay on the field because of health issues.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, they say like with a torn ACL that you tend to have a lot of injuries in other places the following year. Look at Ronald Darby with the hamstring, Darius Geis. Carson Wentz the year before. I'm not sure with Achilles. That's like 2 years removed. He sat out a whole year, and he's still getting hurt. And the other thing I don't like about Sidney Jones is, from what I've heard about people saying stuff in the locker room, he's not really an alpha kind of guy. He's more passive. And that don't work good as an outside corner, man.
Yeah, you need to be cocky. You got to have that confidence, that swag. So we touched on Avonte Maddox just a little bit. Like, I think he has a good role, but it's in that slot position. Like, he got moved to the outside. He got thrown into it, and it looked like he was so lost. So he has a role, and he can do that role fine, sure. But we have to figure something out. We can get by with the Jets with this, but down the road, like, listen, we all chirp Kirk Cousins, and I don't want to overlook the Jets because I think a lot of Eagles fans are starting to do that. I know the players aren't, but the fans are. Minnesota, even though we chirp Kirk Cousins all the time, they have weapons. They have threats, and Craig James isn't going to be someone who's going to be able to shut down these players consistently. We have to fix this issue. We're making these tiny little moves, picking up these veteran players from practice squads and whatnot, but that's not satisfying me. Something actually has to change. But I don't know if it will, dude. Like, I feel like we might sit here and roll the dice with these players.
I feel like, this is what I honestly feel like. I feel like if we don't do anything, we're going to go to the playoffs and we're going to lose some sort of dramatic game in heartbreak because we didn't do something. Like, I've seen this script before with the Eagles. Maybe not secondary, maybe it was a running game, maybe it was the linebackers. But you got to do something. I mean, I don't know what the answer is. At worst case scenario, get Chris Harris Jr. I'm sure he would help. But just imagine, dude. Just imagine this, because you were saying Sal Powell doesn't want to give 2 first-round picks up. And see, this is where I think about this, and I thought a lot about this, and most times I wouldn't. But I consider Jalen Ramsey a Hall of Fame talent. A Hall of Fame talent. So let's say the Eagles pick 16 and 20 the next 2 years. I'm willing to bet that both of the guys you're going to draft are not going to be even close to the talent level of a Jalen Ramsey. And for that reason, and the fact that he's 24 years old, I got to do it. I got to pull the trigger. I do.
No, that's not a flawed mindset to have. Now, in terms of how much more would you be willing to give up? Like, if we mentioned 2 first-rounders, I don't know how much more I can go outside of 2 first-rounders and a corner that we have on the roster, because I'm willing to give up anybody who is a cornerback on this roster because it's an automatic upgrade. It would suck if it was Rasul Douglas because he's our only other capable corner, but anything other than that, like, I don't know how much more I can really give up.
I would say this. I would give up 2 ones and then a 2 in 3 years. So I would say I'll give you my 2020, 2021 first round. Then I'll give you my 2020 second round pick. I would offer that. I would offer a mid-round pick. I would offer Big V. Look, dude, a lot of people are going to get pissed at what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say I would offer Nelson Aguilar, but you have to pay to get rid of him because he stinks so bad. I would give Ertz up. I know there was talk and chatter about it, but I would not. Now, I wouldn't give 2 first rounds in Ertz, but I would give Ertz in a trade, maybe Ertz in like a mid-round pick. I'm willing to do it only because Ertz is 29. He makes a lot of money, and you got Goddard. And I look at Ertz like, okay, Ertz maybe he's here another 2 years, and then he's gone, because at some point they're going to let Goddard be the starter. I think that's the plan. I know that would be hard on Carson. I know it would be hard on a lot of Eagle fans who are attached to him. I love him, but I think of that much of Jalen Ramsey,
I don't think I can go to Ertz level.
Right.
I think he is very important to this
Yes.
team and to this offense, and that's I was actually going to bring up this point before you even went Ertz. Is I know Dallas Goedert was a name thrown in the discussion. I don't think I can give up Goddard either now because I saw how important that two tight end set really was, and that's why this offense and this running game thrived so much was because of the two tight ends and how lethal Dallas Goedert is because he blocks, and then all of a sudden he's a receiver who can go out and make a play happen, and it's so powerful to have these two. I can't touch these two tight ends because it'll change our offense completely.
No, I get it. I understand people's perspective with that. It's just, for me, I think that the Eagles could find a tight end, can get a guy that can produce, easier than they can a corner. And just because of the cap with Ertz, and then the age of Ramsey is why I would consider it. Now, I wouldn't throw Goddard in it, see? I would do Ertz, but not Goddard, because Goddard's young, and he's and we talked about it earlier. I believe at some point we got to start trying to get younger. But I don't want to get – I mean, let me say, I don't want to get rid of Ertz. That would be my, last resort. But, no, I would try not to get rid of Ertz at all.
No, I understand what you're saying. You're just throwing it out there like, hey, if his name was in it, I'd be interested in hearing.
Right. I'm just saying that's how, important I view getting Jalen Ramsey right now. I mean, just picture this, dude. We watched the Saints beat Dallas. Amari Cooper was shut down by Lattimore, right? Imagine you have Jalen Ramsey on the outside, Rasul Douglas, and you can stick Avonte Maddox in the slot. And then you have Malcolm Jenkins and McLeod, and they don't have to worry about what Ramsey's doing. That would take tremendous amount of pressure off the secondary. I think it would clean a lot of things up.
You make a really great point bringing up that Dallas game because Amari Cooper was shut down big time by Lattimore. He was a pest. He was annoying. He was roped all over him. He was making sure he couldn't get open. We have no one that can even press coverage at the line of scrimmage, and everyone gets on Jim Schwartz about that. But it's the same thing with that conversation as it is with the blitz. We've been screaming for the blitz so much, he finally blitzes, it gets torched. Well, fans are screaming, well, why don't you press receivers at the line of scrimmage? Because these corners are getting torched with 10 yards of safety to them. You think they're going to be able to hang if they were at press coverage?
Well, dude, I mean, there are times where, Devontae Adams catches a 5-yard pass and turns around and runs 40 yards downfield. They don't even take good angles. I mean, it was it's so frustrating because, I mean, and every number one receiver has killed us this year. I mean, you don't think Minnesota's going after that? You don't think Dallas is going after that? They're all coming after that secondary.
Well, this is my biggest thing I always talk about. We do our job by making teams one-dimensional because we stop the run and teams don't want to run on us. But the problem is they can absolutely destroy and torch our secondary, so it doesn't even help us that we're making teams one-dimensional.
Yeah, I mean, the question is are these guys just that bad?
Yes.
Are they that bad?
Yes.
I mean, it seems so. It just seems so. You know, I'm really disappointed in Sidney Jones. I mean, especially, when you could have traded up a couple spots and took Dalvin Cook. I mean, could you imagine Dalvin Cook on that offense with that offensive line right now? You could have took Mix. I mean, there were so many other guys available, and they took a shot on Sidney Jones, and it looks like it's backfiring. And that pick is killing us in the secondary right now. It's killing us.
Definitely. And we talk about getting younger, and we talk about where we are with the salary cap. You need to hit on draft picks. You need to hit on draft picks, and that's how you get younger, and that's how you free up some space with cap because you're paying these guys essentially nothing. We don't do a great job. I will say this. It's not like we don't hit at all, but I don't think we hit enough. It's either a legitimate home run or it's a complete bust. There's no one that kind of hangs around and can at least do something. And there's more busts than I will say guys that can actually play.
It seems like if you look at early draft picks, right? Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox, Carson, we hit on those. We kind of miss on mid to late first round picks. We don't really do great with second round picks, especially early seconds. But we seem to do really good with the third round pick, a late second, mid third, fourth. We seem to do good in that area. But mid first round, we don't do great.
I know, and it's definitely killing this team as we look how this team has been constructed over the years. So you mentioned Dalvin Cook, and that's a good segue into the running back conversation because
Right.
Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard, they were beasts for us last game, of course. But we mentioned in the beginning how Duce was talking about this running back by committee thing. And when he played here, he was a beast. He was a dog, but he was a little bit aggravated with how the ball was distributed. Well, we're seeing that now with this team. First game, Darren Sproles gets an absurd amount of touches. Then we're screaming for Jordan Howard. He gets nothing over the last, couple games. And then he finally blows up, and Miles Sanders is getting all these nice runs. He comes out and says, listen, players are going to get disappointed because there's going to be games where they get a lot of touches, then they're not going to see time at all, or they won't see time at all for the first 3 quarters, and then the fourth, Miles Sanders will get the ball for 8 straight carries and be a beast. It's going to be all over the place because when teams, he didn't say this specifically, but this is how I view it. When teams look at our film, they're expecting this and they're expecting that. Well, they don't know what they're going to get from our running game. So I find it interesting that, Duce comes out and says that.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, and I see where he's coming from with it. But I really think that the Eagles kind of found themselves, kind of found their identity in the way they played offense last week. And I would hate to see them get away from that. I really feel like that what Duce is talking about, even though he's saying that, I feel like when it comes to Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders, I think they're going to get a lot. It's going to be a lot like what we saw in Green Bay. I mean, there's times there's going to be less when you're playing a team good against the run and you have to throw on, maybe you're playing Chicago, somebody like that. But, yeah, I mean, I understand his perspective. Look at New England. New England can go every week and be a totally different offense than the week before. One week they come out pass. Next week they come out run. Next week they come out. They change it up every week. So I understand why he wants to do it. I just don't know if he's going to be able to do it.
While that does make sense that the Patriots always abuse what the other team is bad at, right? That's what makes them so good. But for some reason, when the Eagles go in the mindset of throwing the ball to an insane level and they don't run it all, it never works. So I don't even want to try. If a team is bad at stopping the passing game, I don't know if I want to try to abuse that. I want to stick to our game plan and make them change to us.
Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. I'm with you on that 100%.
Yeah, so we'll see how it all plays out, and I'm interested to see, what if we come out, the Jets is such a hard thing to talk about because they stink so much, but just down the line, I'm thinking, what if you see Darren Sproles and Jordan Howard for the first half of a game and Miles Sanders gets no touches, and then in the second half, the defense who's tired out has to deal with a guy who can run out of the backfield and catch out of the backfield for 30-yard catches, and he can make you miss. Like, how hard is that to defend? I'm curious to see how the rotation is moving forward.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I felt like the Green Bay game reminded me a lot of 2017 with the Jai and Blunt and the way they distributed the carries. I was surprised at Miles Sanders because I really liked Miles Sanders coming out, but I was like, you know what? I was kind of worried he wasn't ready for a Thursday night game after the fumbles and stuff. And he was awesome, man. He's very explosive, and I think he's a great balance with Jordan Howard. So I just hope that they keep using those guys the way that they did against Green Bay.
Definitely. We finally did see the Miles Sanders that all the beat reporters were talking about in camp. I mean, we haven't seen it at all, and we finally did.
Yeah, he hit holes. He didn't try to bounce everything, for the most part, outside. And when he accelerates, he's fast, dude. He's fast and shifty. He's not shifty as shady, but he's shifty enough.
It also seems like he won the special teams gig in terms of returning.
Dude, that return changed the game for us as far as I'm concerned. That was like the shot in the arm we needed. That return that he did when we were down 10-0. I thought it was huge.
Definitely. Now, what do we feel about Corey Clement? Is he just cooked at this point?
I don't know. I mean, he hurt his shoulder. He was active, but he didn't play at all. We'll have to see. But at this point, I don't think I would go away from Miles Sanders at the return game. I like the way he's returning. He's definitely faster than Clement.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of the return game, I don't want to see him. But what about just in the rotation as a whole?
Yeah, I would like to see him. I kind of feel like they overused Sproles week 1, and now they're dialing him back. But I think as the season goes on, I think we're going to see, like, later in the season, they're saving Sproles. You know what I mean? So I think Clement should be in there getting some carries and some – look, Clement can catch out of the backfield. That's what I like about him too. So I would definitely like to see him in that rotation.
It's funny you mentioned catching the ball out of the backfield. Jordan Howard catches those passes, everyone freaks out. The reason why he was so wide the hell open is because no one would have ever thought in a million years that he would even get a pass.
Right, exactly. And he caught it. I'll give him credit. He caught it and he walked. That was a great play. That was a great call, man.
Yeah, he caught that one, but there was a play a little bit before that where he almost caught it by his feet and he almost tripped over himself.
Well, yeah, was that the one where they faked the screen, then they went back to him and he caught it? There was the play before this, the touchdown, he caught and then turned it upfield for 8 yards. So Jordan Howard, he's talented. I don't know that he'll ever be a good running back out of the backfield. But like you said, you can use it to your advantage because nobody assumes that they'll use them that way.
Yeah, that's one of Doug's, the tip of the cap to Doug on what he did in that game as an entire game plan. And you mentioned the screen pass. There's nothing better than the double screen pass to a Dallas Goedert or something. It's so great, isn't it?
That was great. Yeah, and that was what they needed to do. They really need to do those misdirections against that defense because that defense comes at you, they blitz, and they overcommit. I'll tell you what, there was screen passes were open all night, and in my stream, before that Jordan Howard touchdown, I was like, you gotta hit him on a screen pass, kind of hit him on a wheel route, but it's same concept. And I don't know, Andy Reid used to run perfect screen passes. I don't think Doug Peterson runs enough of them, to be honest with you. And sometimes when he runs them, they look weird,
I would love to see more screen passes.
Yeah.
Before we touch on the Dallas Cowboys losing, because I know you really want to hit that'll be very entertaining to hear. One thing I saw today was this stat about how the Eagles are doing very well in terms of rushing the quarterback and pressuring the quarterback, but when it comes to sacking the quarterback, they're at the bottom of the league. So I find it really interesting that we're actually getting pressure. Statistically, we're getting pressure on the quarterback, but yet we're not sacking. So how do you feel about that?
I honestly, dude, I kind of feel like it's overrated because, to me, it's like saying we're almost getting touchdowns every drive, but we're kicking field goals. But we're almost getting them. I mean, at some point, they got to get home. At some point, Derek Barnett is a first-round pick. He has to get sacks. He stepped up last game. I give him credit. But these guys, at some point, you got to turn those pressures into sacks. Otherwise, you might as well just bring Mike Mamula back because that's what he was known for, always almost being there. At some point, that's not good enough.
No, I definitely hear what you're saying, but hear me out. Because I agree, and I lean towards that mindset absolutely. Yes, there's value in pressuring the quarterback, but you need to get home. I thought against Green Bay that was our strongest game getting pressure, but here's the issue. Rodgers is amazing at throwing when he's out of the pocket. Our job in that game almost is to keep him in the pocket.
Right. No, I have no problem with the defensive line in the last game. I'm thinking about the Detroit game and the Atlanta game and even the Redskin game. I mean, Casey Stinkum had so much time to throw against us, and I was seeing that statistic. They were showing that after week 1 and week 2. And to me, it's okay, look, it's great. We're getting pressured, but at some point we got to get to the guy. Now, Rodgers is a different animal altogether, though,
We always talk about our offensive line taking a couple weeks to get into rhythm, because we saw it last year. The offensive line struggled early, and then they found a rhythm. Maybe it's the same thing with our defensive front.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. But Fletcher Cox coming back from injury, he doesn't look the same. Then you lose Malik Jackson, you lose Jernigan, and I think that interior presence has hurt us, especially on the outside with those defensive ends. And then Derek Barnett's hurt. Josh Sweat made a nice play in Green Bay, but to me, he has been kind of a disappointment. And Brandon Graham, I think Brandon Graham has played fairly well, to be honest.
I think he's done a decent job as well. All right, so to end this podcast, I want to get your opinion on the Cowboys loss. So this is where I stand. People, and I think you're in this group of people. oh, look at them. They play a good team. They stink. They couldn't get the job done. I'm like, okay, listen, they did lose, and yes, it was a little bit ugly offensively or whatnot, but I'm not going to say automatically now the Cowboys are just this horrendous football team.
No, God, no. I think that Dallas is a top 3 seed in the NFC. I mean, I've said all along, I thought the Eagles and Dallas will meet 3 times. And going into the season, I had those as the top 2 teams in the conference with New Orleans and Chicago. I kind of stand by that. Look, they lost a game, which I think they should have won because Bridgewater was so one-dimensional. But they couldn't move the ball downfield. That Dallas looked a lot like they did, in previous years. What I find funny is you get all these Dallas Cowboy fans telling me Dak Prescott is the MVP of the league, that the Eagles, they should just give up because they won a division. And then you look at it now, Dak Prescott has the same amount of touchdowns as Carson Wentz and less interceptions. Yet, everybody gives Carson Wentz problems and trouble, and they praise how great Dak is. It's kind of hypocritical when they pretty much have the same statistics, on the season. So I enjoyed that loss. I enjoyed it tremendously. I'm a little worried about the Green Bay game because we kind of gave Dallas the blueprint on how to beat Green Bay, and there's no Devontae Adams. So that kind of worries me.
Oh, it definitely worries me because he can eat on that defensive run game that the Packers have. But, yeah, listen, I would love Dak's story if he was on any other team other than the Cowboys. Coming from Mississippi State, later round pick. Like, I would love his story. It just sucks that he plays for that damn star.
Does, man. He's an evil, evil person. Sold soul to the devil, as far as I'm concerned. But, look, I've always said I thought Dak is a good quarterback. I just think that the way they ran offense, they really never taught him to do more. They're trying this year, but we'll see if it takes.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, that is it for this podcast. I appreciate you hopping on to talk some birds. I know you can always do that.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me on, man. I was so honored to be on. Love this channel, and it's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you very much. So, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and comment down below. And we will see you next time we do this podcast. Thank you very much for hopping on again.
Peace.